Yes, hello, welcome everybody. It's Chris here from the Ministry of Dice. And a quick question for you, dear listener, right at the top of the video. Have you been waiting, like I've been waiting, for what feels like a bazillion years for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Black Widow film to come out? Well, it's July 2021, it's finally getting a release, and in honour of that, I'm going to take a few moments now to talk about what I think are some of the best Black Widow cards in the game of Dice Masters. So if you want to sit around, listen to me chunner on about Black Widows in Dice Masters for about 15 minutes, stick around. Right, okay, well hopefully you have stuck around and you are interested in hearing me chunner on about Black Widow for 15 minutes. But as I said in the intro there, the movie has finally arrived. And a couple of months ago on a YouTube video that I made, in one of the comments, someone asked me to do a kind of a video about specific characters. It might be good to look at some specific character focuses in the game. And Black Widow was on my mind because I've just bought tickets to see the movie this weekend and I'm really looking forward to it. And so I thought, well, what better time to take that feedback and do something with it and start with Black Widow. Also, I think she's a great character to start doing videos of this nature around because she has been super prevalent in the game of Dice Masters. I mean, she's almost a Dice Masters meme at this point, that a Marvel set getting released has to have a Black Widow in it. And if it doesn't have a Black Widow, it's going to have a Storm, you know. So she's been around right since the get-go. There was a Black Widow in the very first set. She's appeared in loads and loads of sets throughout the years, throughout the history of Dice Masters. I've just chosen a handful to focus on today that I've enjoyed playing with. So I'll ask you, viewer, if you've got a Black Widow that I've not spoken about today that's your favourite, then let me know in the comments below. Let's get a conversation going. I'd love to hear what you think is the best Black Widow in the game of Dice Masters. But I suppose the best starting point would be to go right the way back to the beginning and talk about Black Widow Serena. From the Avengers vs. X-Men set, and this really was like one of the absolute must-have cards in the early days, certainly for competitive players. She was a 2-cost fist, she had the Avengers affiliation, and a game text read, when Black Widow attacks, she deals 2 damage to your opponent. Your opponent can prevent this by spinning one of his or her characters down 1 level. It was a super AC, so it was kind of hard to get your hands on, but it was cheap. You know, you could buy up a Black Widow Serena first turn, you could get a whole army of them, all 4 max dice, out in the field and just start relentlessly attacking your opponent and either forcing them to spin their characters down to the point of, you know, nothingness, or keep dealing them damage. It was just horrific. It really set the stall out for what overpowered meant in the game of Dice Masters. I mean, the AVX set, I know people talk about power creeping games, but I feel like Dice Masters has sort of done a bit of a, you know, a reverse bell curve, an upside down bell curve, because AVX was just mind-bogglingly strong, and Black Widow Serena is an example of that. Also a really important card for the game of Dice Masters because there was a very exclusive, prestigious alt art promo printed that was a prize card for, I think, national level events. So there was only a very limited number of these that got given out and awarded, and on the secondary market as a collector's item it was fetching, still does, you know, $100, $110, very difficult to get your hands on. So in addition to being a really super important character because of the gameplay value of Black Widow Serena and the fact that just the core set one was a super rare that was difficult to get your hands on, they then released a really exclusive promo one, which I think, you know, just kind of established her as one of those characters and one of those cards that even today, many, many years later, players still talk about. So how can I make a list of Black Widow cards that I think are great without including Black Widow Serena? Although thinking it's great is subjective, because when you're on the receiving end of one, it can feel a little uncomfortable. Right, okay, what's next on the list then? Let's have a look. And I'm jumping forward to Civil War now, folks, and I'm going to talk about Black Widow, Mistress of Pain. She's a 3-cost shield, she's got the Thunderbolt affiliation, and her game text reads, Black Widow can block any number of character dice with a printed fielding cost of 0. So I've got kind of nostalgic, warm feelings for this card. I drafted Civil War a lot, loads, over and over and over again at Fanboy 3 in Manchester and over at Element Games in Stockport. Big up the Manchester local gaming stores. And she was a super handy card to get your mitts on during draft. And not only did she help you out with those characters that obviously had a 0 fielding cost, but she was a great solution for dealing with, you know, walled up sidekicks that might be trying to push through to do damage. Also in the meta at the time, I seem to remember that there were a lot of people playing around with Falcon sidekick teams. You know, the Falcon from Uncanny X-Men, I think it was, that made sidekicks unblockable. This was before the time that we had proper rotations and things. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. But I certainly remember using this as a counter to what's affectionately referred to as the flying sidekicks lists, where you'd buff up your sidekicks and then push them through unblockable with Falcon. So she was really handy for that. You know, she dealt with kobolds. Everyone was swarming with kobolds and they had to attack if there was no adventurer. So I've just got really warm feelings about it. And I love the artwork on this. Look at the artwork on it. She just looks incredible. Incredibly good card there. The painted artwork just, I don't know, everyone's used to seeing her in the black jumpsuit, and I kind of really love the, you know, the kind of Russian lore history of a character with the snowy effect. It really evokes that. Yeah, you know, she's obviously being Black Widow assassin with a big sniper rifle there. Yeah, just great artwork, great game text, used loads back in the day, and certainly one that I found myself drafting a great deal. So there we go, Black Widow, Mistress of Pain. Okay, trucking on then, let's have a look at my list. So next up, we're going to the Guardians of the Galaxy set. And the next card that I want to share with you, looking at my list there, is Black Widow, Spider's Bite. Very specific reason why I like this one. 4-cost Fist, Avengers affiliation. She has Infiltrate, but she also reads, while Black Widow is active, when your character dice use Infiltrate, they deal an additional damage. Now, Infiltrate is clearly going to appeal to a guy like me. It's well known. I'm on the record as being a direct damage kind of guy. So Infiltrate was going to be a mechanic that I was interested in, that I was going to play around with. And Infiltrate, it didn't really take off the way it could do. Oops, sorry guys, got an email then. It didn't really take off the way it could do, but it was still super fun to play with as a casual list. And Black Widow Spider's Bite just gave it that little nudge to make it even more powerful. Now, if you're not aware, Infiltrate is where your characters attack, and if they go unblocked, you can pull them back and deal your opponent 1 point of damage. Of course, what that meant was when you had Black Widow Spider Bite in the field, you could then deal them 2 damage. And if you built a little wall of infiltrators, which you often would do because you'd have the super rare Angela from the Guardians of the Galaxy set that guaranteed the infiltrate would go off, you'd often have a Ricochet for ramp, or maybe a Spot in there. You know, there was a few infiltrate characters. Then you'd be pushing over with 3 or 4 characters and doing 6 or 8 once your Black Widow Spider's Bite was in the field. And what Angela meant was your opponent couldn't remove them with the combat damage too. So I've got fond memories of this one again, because it was one I played around with casually, messed about with. It didn't really take off Infiltrate, as I said before. And again, look at the quality of the artwork on that. I mean, it's so dynamic. There's so much energy. It looks great in foil with the spider's web blaster things that she uses, and I mean, it's a plane landing and she's running away from a plane. What's going on there? What's happening? What kind of mischief has Black Widow got herself into? It looks amazing. Another fantastic piece of artwork on a card based around Black Widow. I mean, how could you not give this card a try just for the artwork alone, but also for fans of direct damage, for fans of stuff like Infiltrate, she was a must-have at the time. All right then, next up we have a Black Widow promo card. I don't think I could make a Black Widow list without talking about this one. It's Black Widow Agent. She's 3-cost Fist. She's got the Shield affiliation and the Avengers affiliation, and she reads, while Black Widow is active, reduce damage from opposing characters' abilities by 1. Your opponent can't target Black Widow with global abilities. I'll just say that again for the Double and Dice podcast. Your opponent can't target Black Widow with global abilities. You got that, Kim? Okay. So, besides the controversial artwork, which clearly caught a lot of attention, I myself joked at the time that I think WizKids have possibly got the youth work experience kid to pick the artwork that day. Although it is incredible artwork. Once you can get past the skin, it is incredible artwork. I know I've talked about artwork a lot. But the game text here, this was like, you know, one of those things where it was a must-have promo. We'd seen this game text before, well, more or less, functionally, the bit that you're interested in, the damage reduction with the Iron Fist promo, which was really exclusive and hard to get hold of at the time. So Black Widow came along and it was another kind of must-have promo card. The ability to reduce damage by 1 is just, can't be underestimated. You know, I mentioned about Infiltrate before, and Infiltrate characters deal 1 damage without something like a Black Widow buff, and Black Widow Agent would take the legs out under it. And there's so many direct damage strategies that just do single energy pings. Ping, 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 ping. Death by 1,000 cuts, and she is your death by 1,000 cuts solution. She takes care of venerable dreadnoughts. She reduces the damage potential of Green Lantern humans. She reduces the damage potential of like little when fielded pingy folk like Jubilee and Ghost Rider. You know, so she's just super useful, loads of utility, and she protects herself really well because she can't be targeted by globals. So no force attack removals, no force block removals, getting your Black Widow knocked out the field. Nice and cheap at a 3 cost, so she could be a 3-turn purchase if you were so inclined to go for something defensive right out the gate. And I don't know, you know, you just can't talk about Black Widow cards without mentioning this one because she has a place in the meta right now, has had for a while, and you often see her cropping up on team lists at competitive events. So there you go. Next on my list, Black Widow Agent. Right, moving on then. Next on the list, we're going to the Avengers Infinity campaign box here now, and I'm going to talk about Black Widow, the Widow's Bite. She actually isn't... I don't like this card, but I have reasons. But she's a 2-class fist. She's Avengers affiliation, and she reads, when fielded, your other character dice get +1 attack until the end of turn. And then she has a global, pay a fist, once per turn, target die must attack this turn if able. And she's a 021, 022, 133, going back to the classic Black Widow stats. Oh, I didn't mention that. Her stats, did you notice? They shuffle around a bit, depending on whether she's more aggressive, combative focused one or whether she's a more defensive focused one. Interesting little twist. Yeah, this one saw some play. I have a painful memory of the playing Yezko in an international online tournament where he slapped me, the fish slap basically. I'm talking about the fish slap, folks. If you've known me for a while and you've been following along, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's where you use Atlantis to generate lots of sidekicks, then you chuck a Black Widow out in the field all of a sudden, give them all +1, and then just charge across before your opponents even had a minute to think about what they're doing or how they're getting their own win con together. So I've got PTSD when I see this, and an Atlantis on the same team hits me in a weird space. But yeah, super useful. Again, that little, it might not seem, it's a little buff. It might seem insignificant +1 across the board there, but it soon adds up, especially if you're playing a wide field team. Also, that global, the force attack global, super, super handy. Great players out there, great competitive players use force attacks as a fantastic means of removal, of getting rid of characters that are a pain in the backside, taking your opponent's control out the picture in their go because you forced it to attack, so that you're clear, free, and easy to do what you want to do in your turn, which I think is one of the nice, interesting little twists about removal of this nature, like force attack removal, because it does it in your opponent's go, gets rid of it in their go. So yeah, you see this one around, you certainly saw it around a lot when the campaign box came out, but you still see it around and about nowadays. Although in the current meta, there's so many good Black Widow cards that it can be a bit of a challenge picking one. So Black Widow, Widow's Bite from the Avengers Infinity campaign box. Alrighty then, here we go. Next on the list, I'm coming to the Infinity Gauntlet set now, the draft pack set. And there's 2 Black Widows I want to talk about from this set. The first of which is Black Widow Running in the Shadows. She's a 3-cost mask. She's got the Infinity Watch affiliation. She has Overcrush, and her game text reads, Black Widow can only be blocked by sidekick dice. And she's 012, 022, 123. So a little tweak, a little shift in her stats there. Oh my word, who's email? I'm email-centric today. Sorry about the background noise. So I've just got a real soft spot for this one. I just think there's something there. I've been playing around with it a little bit, and I've had varying degrees of success at this stage. It's still a card that I'm tinkering around with to build team lists to surround her and make her more of a harder hitting win condition. I like the idea that she's got Overcrush but can only be blocked by sidekicks. It just seems like that's a nice little twist. And if you can pack your team with ways of increasing her stats, because that's the downfall really, she's a 012, 022, 123, so she's not quite got really impactful stats. If you know you're getting blocked by a 1 defense character, then you need that stat bump, that stat push to really take her to the next level. But I just think there's something there. I'm really fond on it. I like that it's a mask Black Widow character. Again, the artwork is just freaking amazing. I just love it. Also notice that the London skyline that they've got up the side of the screen there is oddly, peculiarly familiar. Well, now I've said it so many times it's lost all meaning. Peculiarly, I can't say it. I can't actually say it. Peculiarly. Oh my days. Right, well, let's not sit here watching me trying to say peculiar. Maybe I should just re-record this section. No, balls to it. You can see me struggle over that word. But oddly like the Ministry of Dice logos that we use on our playmats that we give away as prizes. I don't know, by design, by accident? I think it might have been by design. Shout out to Jimmy O.D., my man in WizKids. But yeah, Black Widow's Running in the Shadows. Just a fun little card to casually play around with. I like cards that are win conditions that you can sort of build teams around like this, but has then got creative flexibility outside of the card itself as to how you want to create that win condition. You know, there's lots of different ways you can buffer up. So give it a try. I think this is a really interesting card. Might only be casual, but super fun. Well, how could I do a Black Widow video without talking about Black Widow Widow's Hunt, the rare from the Infinity Gauntlet set? She's a 2-cost mask, she's Infinity Watch affiliation, and her game text reads, Energize, spin target opposing character die down 1 level. If that character die is already level 1, spin it to an energy face of your choice, meaning you, the active player who's fielding Black Widow. Not fielding Black Widow, initiating the game effect. So Energize, if you don't know what this is when you roll an Energized character on double energy face. Obviously, there's 2 double energy faces on the Black Widow dice. Well, on most all of the Energized cards right now. Then at the end of the roll and reroll step, you initiate the game text. So Black Widow Widow's Hunt has been used as a really janky, kind of annoying way of removing characters from your opponent's field. Spin them down until you then make them disappear and you spin them to energy. The spin down mechanic in Infinity Gauntlet is proving to be a really powerful removal technique and board clear technique at the moment. And Black Widow's Hunt, especially if you're one of those jammy folks that I keep playing against, who somehow miraculously roll her on double energy, even though none of my Black Widow Infinity Gauntlet dice roll on double energy. My Black Widow Infinity Gauntlet dice, well, let's just say they seem particularly fond on the level 1 character face. But yeah, if it played right, utilised well, it's just, not only is it weakening your opponent turn by turn, but it is also potentially removal if you can get them all down to level 1 and then bin them off. I was playing Andy a few weeks back and he just kept saying, what level's that character on? What level's that character on? It's bloody annoying playing against it, really, to be fair. But it's super cheap as well, 2-cost mask, and she fits in really well with loads of kind of mask combos and mask synergies. Because if you roll her on energy, you can use the Energize, but then you're in a position where you can make good use of that mask energy once you have rolled it. So if you're perhaps using static field control to stop attackers, or you're playing a mass-centric team and you want just the energy to purchase mass characters, you know, especially with Asuka, there's loads of mass teams around at the moment. It could be really helpful. There's tons of useful mass globals like Clayface, Villainous Pat. So not only is she a handy character in terms of rolling her on Energize for her game effect itself, but you can then make good use of the energy once you have done. And I think I can't really talk about a celebration of Black Widow characters and talking about Black Widow in the game of Dice Masters without talking about that current extremely popular card in the meta right now. So there you go. Black Widow, Widow's Hunt, the rare from Infinity Gauntlet. Well, there we are then, folks. That brings me to the end of my celebration of the character of Black Widow in the game of Dice Masters. If you're seeing the film this weekend, then please do let me know how you found it, if you enjoyed it. I'm hoping that I will be enjoying it as well. A great place to come and tell me about the film and what your thoughts are is on our Discord server. Come and join the conversation and become a part of the ministry, the MOD community, where we talk about Dice Masters and many Dice Masters adjacent things like films and TV shows, nerdy films and nerdy TV shows. So hunt out the link in the description below and come and join us over there. Otherwise, please do make BritRoller6.com your one-stop shop for all your Dice Masters news, spoilers, info, and needs. And of course, if I haven't mentioned your favourite Black Widow today, let me know about your favourite Black Widow in the comments below and why. Alright then, boys and girls, thanks so much for coming and hanging out. I've been Chris, and I'll catch you on a podcast over at BritRoller6.com or here on our YouTube channel sometime soon. See you later, folks.